Great. Wasn't improving it. Hey guys, welcome back to my cupboard. So last week I uploaded Joshua Weissman's sourdough starter, and I thought I would just kind of go with the flow and also go through his no knead beginner sourdough video recipe. My first loaf is done and it is right here. It is gorgeous. Smells so good. It is still warm. I'm waiting for it to cool down a little bit, but my second loaf currently has 7 more minutes in the oven before it's ready to come out and cool down as well. I am not going to cut into it until my outro or b-roll or whatever, but listen to this. That crunch sounds so good to my ears. Sounds like music. But yeah, so I basically did the same thing as my sourdough starter video, which is I recreated his video step by step and really just showed you whether or not it worked, what else I would recommend. Some things for this particular video did change for me, and I will explain what they are through voiceover. But for the most part, it looks great. Again, I haven't cut into it, so I can't really show you the result in this intro. So definitely stay tuned, but otherwise, I'm just going to let you see my process and his process. I will also leave a link to his original video and my sourdough starter video and his sourdough starter video in the description box, so you can be sure to check those out. But otherwise, I am gonna just let you watch the video. I am salivating. I cannot stare at the bread anymore. I am so hungry. So yeah, let's just get into it.
I've been on my way up, now it's really far down. I don't think I'll feel it when I hit the ground.
So here I am about to mix the levain together, and there was nothing too crazy going on here. I did it exactly how he described it in his video, and it turned out great. What I do want to mention is that in his video he said that if your apartment or kitchen is not warm enough, you can basically put it in the oven with its lights turned on, and that's exactly what I did. However, I realized later on when I was pouring it out that my oven with its lights turned on was actually still too warm for the levain, in which case it made it a little bit too watery compared to what his levain looked like in his video. So that is something I do want to mention, is that sometimes even with your oven and its oven lights turned on, it might still be too warm for your levain. So when I was making this bread, I actually used his sample schedule in the description box of his video. And what I realized is that at 225, when he says to start mixing the flour and the water together, I really think he should have said 220, because it definitely took me way longer than 5 minutes to put the flour and the water together. Also, the dough was definitely really sticky. So to give you an idea of timing, what I did is around 9 o'clock I would start prepping my levain, but the levain wouldn't be done until around 9-10, which since it has to sit around for about 6 hours, it wouldn't be done until 3:10. And even though I started the odorless process at around 225, it actually wouldn't be done until around 235, sometimes 240, depending on how sticky the dough is. And so that would mean that I actually wouldn't start making the dough until around 3:15. So if your goal is to follow his sample schedule, then I would recommend starting 10 minutes before, so around 8:45, just to make sure that you are sticking to his schedule. Here you can see just how liquidy my levain became after spending 6 hours in the oven. It definitely was not the same texture as what he showed, but I still made it work. It just meant that as I was working the dough, as you can see here, it was just a lot more wet basically. So it took a little bit more patience to be able to knead it together. And here I am actually doing the extra method, which he recommends but says is not necessary, just because I wanted to give it a shot, and honestly, it was super fun to do. But it also required quite a bit of arm strength, so that was fun. So during the bulk fermentation period, I saw quite a bit of bubbles, which was really, really cool. And obviously I did all the folds. Actually, I think I ended up doing extra folds, but only because it was so fun. And that might have affected the outcome at the end, but it still tasted great. So I have no complaints there. As you can see, as I'm doing more folds during the bulk fermentation period, the dough becomes more smooth, but it also becomes more tough. So it requires a lot more energy to be able to push the folds through. Now, another thing I learned during this entire process is that I highly, and I cannot stress enough, highly recommend you get a bench scraper before you start making this bread, because I didn't have one. I did have one on the way, but it didn't arrive in time for this video. So I actually had to make do with just my hands and, as you can see, a knife, which I felt bad for my kitchen island. This dough is very sticky, so you definitely need something like a bench scraper to be able to move the dough around to how you want to form it. But obviously you can see here that I made it work and it still looked great. And now another reminder for why a bench scraper is invaluable to making bread. Honestly, shaping the dough was the best part of this entire process. At least for me it was.
Down my spine, wanna give you all my time. Give you all my time. You burn my chest just like tequila. Wanna show you why you don't really need her.
So another warning, this bread is great, but because I didn't know what it was going to turn out like, I only had one of those bread baskets. So I ended up using a bread tin that I have to kind of be the bread basket for the second loaf. I'm really bad at explaining it, so I'm just going to link the YouTube video I watched that taught me how to use the bread tin as a bread basket. And because I don't have giant Ziploc bags that are big enough to fit the bread baskets, I just used regular grocery bag, plastic bags that are clean. In his video, he says to put the dough with the plastic bag in the fridge, and what I learned the following morning is that my fridge is actually pretty cold, so that is why my dough did not rise as much as his. So I would recommend definitely checking the temperature of your fridge, but I mean, it still turned out great, so I have no complaints. And here is another reason why you should get some bench scrapers, so you're not using a random kitchen tool like I am to put the bread in the Dutch oven. Although here is where a bench scraper would not do you much good. So here you can see that even though I used a bread tin, the dough still came out great. I really loved the rectangular shape. Oh, and I really do recommend getting a cookie rack because it does help the bread cool down quicker. And now for some bread cutting ASMR. So good. I love bread. this bread is worth the day and a half that I spent making it. Okay, so here are the results of my sourdough bread. Again, this is, or I haven't even said this yet, this is not my first time making sourdough bread, but this is my first time making it with no yeast packets. So in the past, I made sourdough bread from Tasty's recipe, and I didn't realize until after I made their bread once that what I was making in terms of sourdough was not actually true sourdough, because sourdough only uses flour and water. So this is technically, I guess, my first attempt at true sourdough, and honestly, it looks great. I've definitely learned a few things in terms of process, but also, you know, making sure my fridge isn't too cold and all of that kind of stuff. But honestly, it turned out really great. I don't think it rose as much as it should have, but it's not completely flat either. I've seen some pictures where some sourdough breads turn out completely flat, and at least that's not what happened here. So I'm really, really happy with this. Yeah, honestly, I can probably eat this entire loaf myself, but I'm not going to do that because that's a lot of bread. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut some slices for my boyfriend because he's been asking for this for the last 2 days. And I hope you found this video interesting, helpful. I really, really do recommend his YouTube videos if you watch them. So far, I really, really like everything that I've cooked from him, which really has only been the sourdough starter and the bread. But because of these successes, I am really, really interested in making more of his other recipes. The next one I have my eye on and that I will be making, I did do his chocolate chip cookies, which that video is coming soon, so stay tuned. But his next recipe I have my eye on is English muffins, because I really, really like Eggs Benedict, and it's kind of hard to have Eggs Benedict delivered to your door. So that's gonna be our next recipe. So if you're interested in seeing me recreate that, make sure you stay tuned to my YouTube channel. But otherwise, again, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions that I can answer, let me know in the comments down below, and I would definitely be sure to answer them. But otherwise, I will see you next Sunday for another video. Bye. I gotta put this down to do my outro. Hang on. Bye.
I've been on my way up.